Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you are a returning viewer, if you are new to the channel, welcome. So I'm picking back up. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these. I'm kind of picking back up with my my memorable series playlist, and I'm up to 2002 in the run down here, and I was looking at what series I wanted to look at. And I thought, this was a pretty magical run, a pretty good underdog run for these guys. And so I thought I would look at the series that got them to the 2002 Stanley Cup Final. Now, they played the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, one interesting thing, and I had forgotten about this until I was looking back at the setup, the way this was at the time, because I thought it was kind of interesting. But we take a look here. We look at the Carolina Hurricanes. They finished with a record of 35, 26, 16, and 5. Now, of course, we still have four columns. You had wins, losses, ties, and then overtime. The overtime loss points. So, it was interesting. We hadn't completely gotten rid of ties yet. So, we were still in the four columns where you still had the ties, but then you had the overtime loss, the overtime loss points in there. So, yeah, Carolina finished with a record of 35, 26, 16, and 5 for 91 points. Their run to the 2002 Eastern Conference Final, they defeated the New Jersey Devils in the Eastern Conference quarterfinal 4-2, and then in their Eastern Conference semifinal series, they defeated Montreal 4-2, which brought them into this series, the 2002 Eastern Conference Final. Then we get their opponent. They played the Toronto Maple Leafs. This, I believe, was the last time the Maple Leafs had a real good run in the playoffs. And they had a pretty good season too. I mean, they played in their 82-game season. They finished with a record of 43 wins, 25 losses, 10 ties, and 4 overtime losses. So they finished with 100 points even. Now, here's what was interesting when I was looking back at this. Because I looked at this. Now, even though Toronto finished with more points, they had a better record. They have more points. They did not have home ice advantage, though, in this series. Reason being, this was the 6th division setup, and the Southeast Division at that time that Carolina was in, it was not a good division. You had Washington. You had, I believe, both Florida teams, and you had Carolina, you had Washington, you had Tampa, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, and the Atlanta Thrashers. So, this is obviously way before Atlanta moves to Winnipeg. But yeah, this was the 6th division setup, and the reason why Carolina, even though they finished 9 points behind Toronto, they won their division. They won the division, which automatically gave them a top 3 seed. So Carolina was the number 3 seed in this playoff run. Toronto did not win their division, so they did not get a top 3 seed, so they were a lower seed. So even though they finished with more points and a better record, they were the lower seed, which gave Carolina home ice advantage. And Toronto's run to the 2002 conference final, they defeated the New York Islanders 4-3 in their Eastern Conference quarterfinal matchup. And then in their Eastern Conference semifinal matchup, they defeated the Ottawa Senators 4-3. So, and I remember this series thinking, Toronto, I think, could be Toronto could be interesting. I thought if Toronto made the final, I think they could have won it. I think they could have won it, but obviously that didn't quite happen. So we get into this. We get into game one. Now the scoring here this is the epitome of the dead puck era. The epitome of the dead puck era. I mean, the most amount of goals that are scored in any one game is 3. 3 goals are the most scored in any of these games. So yeah, it's not an abundance of scoring here. But we get into the first game. And of course, the first 2 games, as I said, Carolina has home ice advantage because they were the division winner and the number 3 seed. So we get into game 1. And at 3:23 of the first period on the power play, giving the hang on, I think I messed that up. Hang on. Because, yeah, Jeff O'Neill, I don't recall Jeff O'Neill being on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let me change that around. So, yeah, okay. So I definitely did that wrong. So, yeah. You got that one there, and now mind you, I decided for this one to do the team's main colors as the individual scores. So yeah, Jeff O'Neill scored unassisted for Carolina on the power play to give them a 1-0 lead at 3:23 of the first period. Then at 7:02, Toronto ties it. It is Alexander McGillney from Thomas Caberlet. That ties the game at 1 apiece after 1 period. So we get into the second period, and what ends up being the game winner on the power play at 12:45, it is Hoagland. Jonas Hoagland, I think, was his name, from Dempsey and Gary Roberts. So that makes it 2-1. And that's the score at the end of the second period. There's no scoring in the third. And that's the final. Toronto wins game 1. They steal home ice away from Carolina in game 1 with a 2-1 win. Now, Curtis Joseph was the goalie for Toronto. Very, very to me, Curtis Joseph, very underrated. Damn good goaltender. Man, was he good. So, I mean, to me, very, very underrated. He stopped 31 of 32 shots for a .969 save percentage. And for Carolina, the little guy, a lot of people called him, because he wasn't that tall. He was only like, what, 5'5", 5'6"? He was not very tall. Arturs Urbe stopped 22 of 24 for a .917 save percentage. In that first game, Toronto is up 1-0. So they have stolen home ice away from Carolina. Can they take advantage? Can they take advantage of it? Well, not really. So we get into game 2. There is no scoring in the first period, no scoring in the second period. We get to the third period. And this is where the scoring actually happens. At 7:31, Carolina gets the lead. At 7:31, it is Brett Hedican from Martin Jelena and Bates Battaglia. That makes it 1-0 Hurricanes. Then, I'm imagining, Carolina, Toronto, I'm guessing they probably pulled the goaltender down 1-0. And with 8 seconds to go in the third period, it is Alan McCauley from Gary Roberts and Matt Sundin to tie the game for Toronto at 1 apiece to force overtime. Then we get into the overtime, and at 13:42 to tie the series for the Hurricanes, it is Nicholas Valine from Rod Brindamore, the captain or well, he wasn't the captain at that point, but he was the assistant captain and current head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, giving the Hurricanes a 2-1 win, and the series is tied. Curtis Joseph stopped 31 of 33 for a .939 save percentage. Artur Zerbe went 26 of 27 for a .963. Pretty good, pretty good numbers from these guys so far. Again, there was not a lot of scoring in this series. Again, this was the epitome of the dead puck era. So we go over to Game 3. The series switches to Toronto. Series tied 1 apiece. Toronto's got home ice. What can Toronto do with it? Well, not much. Because in the first period of Game 3 on the power play at 5:15, it is Ron Francis from Sami Kapanen and Brett Hedican that gives the Hurricanes a 1-0 lead. That is the score after the first period. Then in the second period, on the power play again, at 19:26, it is Brian McCabe from Sundin and Caberlet. That ties the game at 1 apiece. So it's 1-1 after 2 periods. There is no scoring in the third period. We go into overtime again. Second straight overtime. At 6:01, it is Jeff O'Neill from Ron Francis and Brett Hedican. That gives the Hurricanes a 2-1 victory and a 2-1 series lead. Artur Zerbe stopped 20 of 21 for a .952 save percentage. Cujo stopped 15 of 17 for an .882 save percentage. So, not a ton of shots. Not a ton of shots for Carolina. They only got 17 shots in the game, but they got 2 of them past Cujo, and that's all they needed. So the Hurricanes are up 2-1. So we go to Game 4. Toronto desperately need to tie this series. And Toronto in this game, it's not the kind of result they were hoping for. So we get into Game 4. We get all the way into that last minute of the first period. And with 28 seconds left in the first period at 19:32, it is on the power play. It is Yaroslav Svoboda from Sean Hill and Sami Kapanen. That makes it 1-0 in favor of the Hurricanes. There is no scoring in the second period. We go to the third period, and at 11:41, it is Kapanen from Francis. That makes it 2-0 in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. And then at 17:35, just to put the little icing on the cake, it is Francis from Brind'Amour and Hill. That makes it 3-0. And that's your final for Game 4. So Carolina, they split the series. Carolina loses that first game. They come back and they win 3 straight, including 2 in Toronto. And big, in Toronto, who, I think they were feeling pretty good after that first game. Yeah, not so much after that. Now this is the interesting thing. We look at the goaltending stats here. Artur Zerbe stopped all 31 shots he faced. He faced 31 shots. Curtis Joseph, he only faced 15 shots. So the Hurricanes only got 15 shots on him throughout the entire game, but they scored on 3 of them. 12 of 15 for an .800 save percentage. Not a good game for Cujo. Not a good game at all. And it's crazy. 15 shots. That's all he faced. And this whole run, Irbe was on something. He was riding a high here for sure. But it is now 3-1 in favor of Carolina. They're 1 win away from going to the Stanley Cup final. Game 5, we're back in Carolina. Can they wrap the series up on home ice? No, they cannot. Game 5, this one's real easy. In the first period, what ends up being the game-winning goal, the only goal, the game-winning goal, at 18:32 of the first period on the power play, it's Darcy Tucker from McCabe and Sundin. That gives the Maple Leafs a 1-0 lead. And that's your final. That is it. One goal, a 1-0 shutout in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs in Carolina. So Cujo stopped all 27 shots he faced for a pretty nice shutout. Arturs Urbe stopped 18 of 19 for a .947 save percentage. Just some crazy numbers here. We got some crazy numbers in this series. And again, in this game, it was Urbe who didn't face a whole ton of shots, and he lost. So Toronto's got a little life here. Okay, they've made this series 3-2. Can they go back home and force this thing to a Game 7? Well, we find out yet not quite. So Game 6 starts. There is no scoring in the first period, no scoring in the second period. We get into the third period, and at 9:36, to give the Hurricanes a 1-0 lead, it is Jeff O'Neill. That makes it 1-0 in favor of Carolina. They hold that lead all the way up until late in the third period, where, again, I'm guessing they probably pulled Cujo. And at 19:38, it is Sundin from Tucker and Caberlet ties the game at 1 apiece. We're going to overtime. Again, a win for the Carolina Hurricanes, and they advance to the Stanley Cup Final. A win by Toronto. We go back for Game 7. Well, at 8:05 of the first period, it is Martin Jelena from Joseph Wasacek gives the Hurricanes a 2-1 win. The Carolina Hurricanes advance to the 2002 Stanley Cup Final and their first ever Stanley Cup Final. Arturs Urbe stopped 35 of 36 for a .972 save percentage. And again, Cujo, Curtis Joseph, stopped 33 of 35 for a .943 save percentage. The numbers for these guys, for some of these goaltenders, I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, 960s, 970 save percentage. Cujo had a shutout. Urbe had a shutout. And again, this is in the heart of the dead puck era. You had 3 goals scored total in Game 1, 3 goals scored total in Game 2, 3 goals scored total in Game 3, 3 goals scored in Game 4, only 1 goal scored in Game 5, and then again 3 goals again in Game 6. So 5 of the 6 games had a combined total of 3 goals. And these two teams were pretty good. These were some pretty good teams at the time. But again, it's the heart of the dead puck era. We would not really see scoring go up until post-lockout. And yeah. So Toronto, they get to the conference final. They don't quite get to the Stanley Cup Final. This, I believe, was the last time they made it this far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have not been out of the first round. They've been out of the first round once since, I believe, it's 2004. And this, I believe, was the last time they were in the conference final, was 2002. But Carolina, they make the Stanley Cup Final, and they ran into a Detroit Red Wing team that was just on another level. Detroit was on another level that year. It was, Detroit still had a lot of the talent from their 97 and 98 teams. And, I thought it would have been pretty cool to see Carolina win a Stanley Cup that year. That would have been pretty cool. But, they did not that year. But this run they had to get to the Stanley Cup Final was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. And yeah. So let me know what you guys think of the 2002 Eastern Conference Final. Did you guys watch the series? Did you guys watch this series? What did you guys think of the not just the four columns, the four the win loss ties and overtime columns, the four number columns, but what did you guys think of how the setup was? That even though Toronto finished with more points and a better record than Carolina, they had a lower seed because Carolina was a division winner and they were the number 3 seed, so they had that higher seed because they won the division. What did you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments section. And yeah, I've got 2003 will be the next one. I'll have a few to go looking through in that to see which one I want to look at. And yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Hit like, hit subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Let your friends know about the channel. Let your family know. If you want to share this video or any of the other videos from this playlist or any other videos from the channel, go right ahead. That would be absolutely incredible. And yeah, so pretty and again, I know these videos don't exactly get a whole lot of views, but it's fun to look back on. I mean, I'm one who I love anything historical when it comes to hockey, and I love looking back at a lot of these old school series, and just let me know what you guys think. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about the way the divisions were set up at the time and how the playoffs were set up. Let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe. I will see you guys later.